Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show. Now my guest today is Richard Gonsalves, which I'm about to join on location. Now to contact Richard, you can email him in the description of this video below. Just to give you a bit of background on Richard, he has a passion for petroglyphs and is the president of the Arizona Archaeological Society. Now I joined Richard at his home in Snowflake, where before he retired he taught Photoshop at Pioneer College. Now Richard is now looking to preserve and promote petroglyphs in the southwest of America, and enjoy my interview with Richard. Well, Richard Gonsalves, thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
So Richard, obviously I'm traveling the USA right now. I'm getting to meet some amazing people, and I've come across some of the work that you do as well. So just for the audience, just give us a slight background on yourself to begin with.
I've lived in Snowflake my entire life. We've had other businesses. I'm retired now, and now I'm able to do some of the things that I've enjoyed all my life, such as the petroglyphs, archaeology. I've got a good friend, Travis Walton, which most people have heard of, UFOs. Clifford Mahooty is a good friend of mine. I'm interested in the archaeology, the things that Clifford has to talk about. And I've got a good friend that wrote a book on Asiatic echoes about Chinese writing in the petroglyphs. And I've been able to go out with him and find quite a few petroglyphs that actually are Chinese writings.
So going to your work then on petroglyphs, what got you into that work?
I've lived in Snowflake. I've looked at petroglyphs my whole life. We have some fantastic petroglyphs right here within 5 miles of the town, and it's not something that is unique or individual. For me, I'd see them on a daily basis, basically, and I always wondered, what could they mean? Why would they be making these things? They're not extremely difficult, but they put a lot of time and effort in making some of these, and why? And most of them are, they don't depict anything that you understand what they would be doing. And so that was something that's always been in my mind. And now that I'm retired and I'm the president of the Archaeological Club in Heber-Overgaard, and I started meeting people and sharing our common interests. I taught Photoshop at the college, and I used some of my petroglyph pictures to make calendars and other things. So this has just kind of evolved into what it is now.
Absolutely. And what is the meaning behind them? First of all, also, how old are some of these petroglyphs as well?
Most of the civilization around here started around 600 AD, but they didn't really get going until around 1250 to 1450. And then the Anasazi basically left the country and abandoned all of their inhabitants. And they don't know where they went or who they became. The Hopis and Zunis started showing up after that. And then the Navajos came somewhere in the 1400s, if I remember right. And some of the Chinese, if it's Chinese, could date them back 3,000, 5,000.
Chinese as well, yeah.
Yes. This area is the old Route 66. And the reason that the Route 66 was put here is because the Indians had trade routes from here over to the San Diego, Long Beach, somewhere in there. And so this was a trade route. They followed the rivers, and so when if the Chinese came, they would have followed these same trade routes. They needed to be fed every day. They needed water. And so they would follow from village to village along this Route 66. And that's where we're finding some petroglyphs that look like Chinese.
But they're all over the world, aren't they? Petroglyphs.
Yes, petroglyphs are all.
What are they trying to teach? What are they telling us? What's the message in a lot of these petroglyphs?
You know, they're pictures, and there's no subtitle underneath of them telling you what this picture is. So nobody can really tell you this is exactly this meaning. You have to interpretate. You have to say, well, this looks like a lizard, so it must be a lizard. But why are they drawing a lizard? Does it have more meanings? And I'm not interested in lizards or deer or whatever. I'm looking at some of the petroglyphs that, why in the heck would they make something like this? It's just undecipherable. But I found some that I see as Orion's belt. Told me that if I stood there at the winter solstice, December 21st, I would watch the sun walk up the side of a mountain. I went there this last December, and sure enough, it walks right up the side of the mountain. And in January, I found one in Show Low that I looked at it and I could see a bright sun, 3 dark suns, a dim sun, and a bright sun again. To me, that said it was a total eclipse. Well, I got on the internet and found out there was a full total eclipse in Show Low in 1379.
Wow.
And an Indian wrote it down.
And do you think why would they have written that down for? What would?
I've seen a total eclipse, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, but when it happened, it was like a religious, spiritual experience. You can't imagine what it's like until you actually see it. And for the sun to go out for 5 minutes, that would have terrified some of the people.
And ones that you said about Orion's belt and other petroglyphs that would equal sort of star systems as well. Obviously, your friend is Travis Walton, and obviously he's famous for the UFO abduction. Right. I mean, can you make a connection that they had some sort of connection with the star people back in the day than the native Indians did?
Well, that's one of the things that I've got a good friend, Clifford Mahooty. He's a Zuni elder. The Zuni, well, all of the Indians talk about star people, ant people, the star people coming down and giving them knowledge and help. And so to the Indians, UFOs are not out of the ordinary. They're part of their culture. And so when I look at a petroglyph, I don't want to put my biases in it.
Right.
What I believe has nothing to do with the person that put the petroglyph on the rock. I need to look at it and see what he may have thought. That's what is important, not what I think.
How do you do that?
That's what makes petroglyphs fun for me. You have to use your imagination. What were they thinking? Why were they doing this? And there are so many of them that I still haven't figured out what they are. And I'm looking for the mystery. There's mysteries to be found everywhere.
And how were they formed? How did they actually make that?
Normally you take a hard rock, like a river cobblestone, and you peck on a softer rock, and it knocks off some of the outer varnish, which is dark, and it exposes a lighter color underneath. And you just peck on the rock until you get it. They've also used them as a hammer. You take one rock and hit it with another one. That way you make real fine lines. And a third way is through abrasion. You just scratch it in.
And that would have taken how long to do some of these, do you think?
You can make a lizard in like 5 minutes, usually. It's not extremely difficult, but you take a look at some of the petroglyphs, and somebody took a lot of time to...
Some of them did.
Very, very intricate.
Well, we'll just put some of the pictures that you've got onto the screen right now, just to show some of the petroglyphs that you've captured. How many have you sort of captured and recorded, would you say?
You know, I'm into photography and Photoshop, and I know that there's people that go out and destroy petroglyphs and other things, and I wanted to start recording some of them for future generations, and that's how I initially got started.
Yeah.
And then my interest grew, and I met new people, and it's really taken off.
Would you be surprised if there's a deeper meaning behind some of them?
Oh, I know there's some deeper meanings. Of course, I'll have to show you a lot of my petroglyphs to let you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there are petroglyphs of macaws, which the Indians had macaws here, but they were not native. They were brought in from northern Mexico. And so there was a trade route into this area from Mexico, and there was also a cultural exchange. The Aztec Indians claimed to come from a mountain in the north, which possibly could be Arizona. And a lot of their culture, the Quetzalcoatl is a good example. There's pictures, petroglyphs, actual statues of Quetzalcoatl in Arizona, and it's also in Mexico City. So there was a cultural exchange somewhere, somehow. And how much culture and other trade items. They had seashells and stuff that came this way. They found chocolate in Chaco Canyon, which is from Mexico City. So yes, was quite a bit of trade back in those days.
Incredible distance, isn't it, when you think of it?
Incredible distances, thousands of miles.
Right, right. What about some of these petroglyphs that you can only see from the sky?
Intaglios, there's a few in Arizona and Southern California. I haven't seen any of them, but most of those are in Peru, or the Nazca lines.
But when you think of those type of, I suppose you still class them as petroglyphs.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
in the same category.
And how the heck did they do that from not having any, planes apparently?
Right. That's a good question. I know you can go out with ropes and strings and draw circles and arcs and be able to scale a picture up, but the question is why?
Right, absolutely. And does that question of why they're still there, that's a question that you must always ponder when you come across a new petroglyph, like, what was the purpose really for this? Mm-hmm. Was someone just having some fun, or was this a marker of some sort for a civilization that's obviously gone?
Well, archaeology says that they didn't have writings. Now, the Mayan Indians did some writing, and the Chinese invented writing, and other places, but the Indians around Arizona and North America never had a writing system. Mm. But when I start finding petroglyphs that are similar, mm-hmm. it makes me wonder, why are they making the same petroglyph in different places, hundreds of miles away? And some of them have a Chinese connection, which date back to 3,000 years ago when the Chinese were first trying to learn how to write. And they, like normal handwriting, not everybody could read each other's handwriting.
Right.
And so some of the petroglyphs we see here are very similar, and some of them are actually exact
Yeah.
to some of the the writings in China 3,000 years ago.
It's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely.
Oh yes. But the question you have is, were they actually writing something, or were they just drawing a picture?
What's your gut feeling tell you after spending all this time researching it?
Some of them are both. Some of them are just doodles. Some of them are an actual meaning. And each petroglyph has to be evaluated on its own. Okay, now I'd like to show you some of the petroglyphs that I've taken through the years. Some of them are going to be some of the more recent ones that I found interesting. These are some of the petroglyph pictures that I've taken. I'm going to show you some of the most recent ones, just this last year. Here's one that I had a hard time taking a picture of, and here's the enhanced version. And this one shows what I see as Orion's belt. And there's more pictures, more glyphs here that have more meaning, but this one was the main one. And here's the picture of what I saw in the petroglyph, the actual Orion's belt. And by standing there, that told me that if I went back December 21st, I would see the sun climb up the mountain. And sure enough, it did. And that proved to me, at least, that that was Orion's belt, and the Indians were trying to tell me this is a place to observe the solar equinox. Or not equinox, but winter solstice. Here's a Kokopelli right next to it, some 50 feet away. I thought that was a very interesting one, and I turned it into my Christmas card. Everybody seems to get a big kick out of that one. Here's another one I found in January. What I see in this one is a full solar eclipse. And if you'll look, you'll see a bright sun, 3 dark suns, a dim sun, and then fully bright again. And in the year, in the year 1379, there was a full solar eclipse in Gonsalves, Arizona, where this petroglyph is. And some Indian wrote it down. That dates the petroglyph to 1379. Here's another petroglyph that I found. I've got a good friend, John Rushkamp, wrote the book Asiatic Echoes, which is about Chinese writing, 3,000-year-old Chinese, not modern Chinese. And this is a petroglyph that I showed him, and he went back and found the Chinese that matched it. It means to go out or to go forth. Now this is one that there's a legend of the sun being tethered by ropes, and it's either to slow the sun down to a 24-hour period, or possibly to drag the sun back up into the sky. This one is in Snowflake, Arizona. Now here's one that John took in Las Vegas, Nevada, or close to it, in Grapevine. He saw these, this is Chinese for a musical note. While looking at his petroglyph, I see very similar ones here in Snowflake. They obviously means something to somebody to have repeat patterns. And here is the Chinese vibrating string, meaning a musical note. And that's what he saw in that petroglyph, but the panel. Here's another one of the Hopis and Zunis talk about the emergence. They believe that they lived underground in the third world, and they were enticed to climb out through a hole into the fourth world, which is the world that we live in today. And it's called a sipapu. And this, with a foot, with a zigzag, means a trail marker. I see it as a hand, meaning they climbed out, not walked out. And there are plants that they brought with them, the corn, the beans, the squash. And here's another one, which I think is the same thing. You have the hole, the sipapu, the plants, and footprints walking away that they came out of the underground third world into our fourth world that we live in today. And here's what I see as a quetzalcoatl, and that is a feathered serpent. The Aztecs worshipped the quetzalcoatl, and here is a picture of the quetzalcoatl in the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, and it looks like a sea serpent, not a rattlesnake or something that goes sideways, but up and down. And so that, to me, shows that there's a commonality between Mexico City and Arizona. This is a picture of some of the ant people. The Zunis and Hopis talk about star people and ant people coming down from the different constellations and giving them knowledge. And possibly that's what these are. Nobody really knows what any of the petroglyphs mean. There's no caption underneath the picture telling you what they were. It's just a picture. You have to come up with what you think they are. Here's several different kinds. To me, that means a different ranking. Some of them are a higher rank than others. They're not all uniform, exact, identical. And they come in many different shapes and forms. Here's one that's up for interpretation. Do you see a turtle with a leg up in the air, or do you see a UFO, or what other thing could you see? These are all up for interpretation. Now here's a guy with a elongated skull. This is Arizona. There are pictures of, or there are actual skulls in South America, in Peru I believe, that have elongated skulls. Let's see if I can actually find the pictures of them. Here's one. Here's another. Let's see. Also, there's the quetzalcoatls. This is a quetzalcoatl in the museum in Springerville. Possibly there was an interaction between Springerville and Mexico City and the Aztecs. They both have the quetzalcoatl. Here's a picture of the original. Somebody put this up in front of the drugstore in Springerville. It was there for approximately 10 years, and then they took it down and broke it, and only the top part of it is in the museum. The rest of it is gone. Nobody knows where it is. some of the pictures of Quetzalcoatl. Let's see. Now this is a panel that I found extremely interesting. And this is the panel that really got me interested into the petroglyphs. It shows the twin stars, and I took a picture of one of these panels, and then years later I took a picture of the other one, and I thought I was taking the picture of the same panel, but it didn't look right. And so I went back through my pictures and found both panels, and you see twin stars in both of them. You see whatever this is, I haven't figured that out yet. You see, this upset me. It looked like it had been shot with a shotgun, but it's in the same other panel in the same position. This is something put there by the Indians. It meant something to them. To me, that means the Orion, especially, or not Orion, Milky Way, especially since it has the twin stars or binary stars. Both panels have the same figures in them. Another close-up of, now this guy is, I don't know, it's a humanoid looking thing, but since he's in the Milky Way around stars, maybe they're trying to tell you it's a starman. Since they have their legends, the star people came down and gave them knowledge and helped them. Yeah, here's that panioka that I was talking about that was found in Springerville. Here's a picture of the Quetzalcoatl in the 50s when they first found it. Now here's some of the skulls in Peru. The Inca and the Egyptian, the elongated skulls. Another Egyptian and some of the different birthing scenes in different areas. Is there anything you wanted to talk about on this? The one down here in the corner is one that I find quite interesting. It shows the Hopi women with their hair whorls, and so you can see that here's a woman with hair whorls giving birth, but she's not giving birth to a baby or even an animal. That looks like the Chinese symbol for tree. It's the word tree, not a picture of a tree. And if that's the case, that dates this back 3,000 years. And here's a picture that I found very interesting. John Rushcamp found this picture in the Mojave Desert in California, and I found this one in Tularosa, New Mexico. And if you look at them, they're virtually identical, even down to the little feather that is chipped out on this one, but is definitely showing on the other one. And the top part of this is very similar to the Chinese 3,000 years ago word for mother, lactating breasts. And here's the different ways that they made that same symbol, showing lactating breasts, meaning mother. And here's the panioka. the 4 migrations. The Hopis believe they came from 4 different areas, east, west, south, and finally from the north. And they all came together and became one tribe, the Hopis. And we're back to the skulls. Some prayer sticks. They're quite prevalent around here. Why would some Indian make that? I haven't figured that out yet. There's so many mysteries yet to be discovered. And to me, that's what makes them exciting. Again, why would an Indian make any of these? But yet they're all very similar.
So obviously we've been sharing some pictures on the screen, and me and you have looked at some of those pictures earlier on before this interview. There's fascinating images on there. So there is a society that you're part of. That society is
The Arizona Archaeological Society.
Okay. Now there's no website, I don't believe, for that society. Well, if there is, we'll put it on the link below, if there is. Or we'll put it on the screen now, if there is.
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating that the work that you do. I wanted to get you on just to talk about some of your work with the petroglyphs, because obviously we've been interviewing Clifford as well.
Right.
And he obviously talks about some of this work, and to have someone that's actually researching it out there is fascinating. What would you sort of want to leave as an important message to the audience on the work that you're doing?
That's kind of a hard question, I guess. No, it's just an interest that I have, and it's talking about a group of people that I find very interesting, are prehistory and history, and it just is part of humanity, of who we really are and how we got here.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.